Now, in the immediate aftermath of Storm Arwen, I made a video about the consequences that I had to deal with as a result of a loss of grid supply to my house. Now, today we've got another storm. This is called Storm Malik. And as you can see, we've already got one tree down behind my house. The strength of the wind above my village, just outside, are much stronger than what they are down here. Now, I was going to talk to you about what happened after that video was published. We received compensation payouts. These are automatic payouts from the local power distribution company called SSE Networks. In widespread instances, people received a £250 compensation payout. Now, £250 does not cover all of your losses suffered as a result of a power blackout. In many instances, people had to throw out food from their fridge freezer because it was spoiled. In other instances, people lost actual income because they weren't able to run their business or they were unable to work from home. But that's to say nothing of those people who relied on power to keep their central heating going, and they had to live in a cold, dark house. And in some instances, they had to do that for up to a week. However, £250 does go some way towards mitigating the effects of the next storm, such as this storm here, Storm Malik. Some people in my village have already lost power. I'm lucky so far, but I could be next. So in this video, what I want to talk to you about is what you can get in terms of backup power for £250, and also what you can get above that price point and what extra value you get from that backup power. Now, if you haven't watched my previous videos, hello, I'm Anthony. I live in Aberdeenshire, and in November 2020, I commissioned a 9 kilowatt solar panel array to be installed on my bungalow. I've made many videos about that solar panel array in the previous months. Both the operation, the performance, and the value generated from those solar panels has been covered in extensive detail previously. Now, here I am 1 hour later, and the power has gone out because of Storm Malik. And I want to actually just use this as an opportunity to say that when it comes to grid-tied solar inverters, these will shut down when the power goes out. The reason they do so is to protect the grid and protect any workers who are working on the grid. Now, there are solutions which you can use to overcome this, but you can't do that for £250. Regardless of that, the majority of houses in the United Kingdom still do not have solar power. So I want to talk about backup solutions regardless of whether you've got solar power or not. Now, during a blackout, the first point of inquiry for many households is going to be to get a petrol or diesel generator. In my childhood, I certainly remember there was always one house in the village which was lit up in a sea of darkness. And I remember looking at that house with a certain degree of envy. So we'll have a look at Screwfix here. Let's type in the word generator. And you can see there's a number of options around the £250 mark. I won't go through all of them, but the one in the top left corner is £200, and this one caught my eye in particular. So this is a 1800 watt generator. At 3/4 load, it's got a 10-hour runtime. So if you're at a more typical load of 500 watts, for example, you could probably get a whole day's worth of running time out of this before you have to top up the petrol tank. So if we look at this in more detail, we can see that there is a 10-litre petrol tank in there, and we've got 2 lots of 240 volt socket outlets. So what can you do with 1800 watts? Well, you can run your entertainment system, you can run a good portion of your lights in your house, you can run your fridge freezer, and you'd still have enough spare power left over to run a vacuum cleaner. Now, there are drawbacks to having a petrol generator solution. For one thing, you can't hardwire it into your house. You have to use extension cables and you have to run them outside. In this instance, I typically run extension cables through my letterbox in order to minimize drafts. So you'd have extension cables running on the floors inside your house. If you want to hardwire it into your house in order to run your central heating and your lights, you'd need to have something called a power transfer switch. This is a switch which isolates the incoming electricity supply in favour of a connection from your generator. They are professionally installed by electricians, and that increases the cost of this project. You can't do it for £250, but for the purposes of emergency power, this is adequate. Generators are also noisy. And if you can imagine every single house on the street having a generator running during a power cut, you can also imagine how oppressive that noise would be, and also how oppressive the emissions and fumes would be from those generators. They are heavy and they take up space, so you're going to need a shed for this. Now that's not a problem for most people who live in a village. But what is a big drawback for having a petrol generator is the need to fill it up with petrol every couple of days. Now, a jerry can like this is a 5 litre capacity. This petrol generator I talked about has got a 10 litre tank. So you either need to get an extra jerry can like this for just such a contingency, or you need to go to the petrol station every single day. For many people, that is a big rigmarole just in order to keep backup power running. Or you need to siphon petrol from the petrol tank in your car. Siphoning petrol involves sticking a tube into the filling nozzle of your petrol tank and sticking it all the way down into that petrol tank. It then involves using your mouth to suck on that tube to prime that tube with petrol in order to get your siphon action going. As you can imagine, you can get a mouthful of petrol. It's not a pleasant affair. Now that all assumes that you have a petrol car. And this example right here is going to become a far more common sight in the short years to come. Now, quite aside from those issues, generators need oil and they also need annual maintenance in order to make sure that they are ready. So all told, that headline price comes with a lot of hassle for something that is only going to be used once every few years. So what other options do we have for £250? You can get a battery. This example here is made by a company called Jackery, and it costs just over £250. It's got a mains power outlet which is limited to 200 watts. You've got USB ports, and you've also got a 12 volt car socket. Now it's got a DC supply input which is rated between 12 and 30 volts. And as such, while it can be recharged from the main supply, it can also be recharged from a small 100 watt solar panel. Now the battery is rated at 240 watt hours and it weighs just under 3 kilograms. So it's very portable. But what can you run with that? It can run one table lamp like this one for 24 hours. Or it can run this modem for 12 hours. Or this home laptop, monitor and docking station can keep going for 5 hours. Or it can run this fridge freezer for 8 hours. Or this entertainment system. However, this will run for just 1 hour. So it can run one or two of your basic needs overnight, but it can't run all of them. After one night, if you still don't have the grid power back on the next day, you're going to be stuck without spending any more money. So a £250 battery compared to a £200 generator plus £10 of oil plus £15 of petrol every 48 hours is a lot less capable. But that lack of capability is partially made up for by versatility and portability. It's also very quiet, and there's no hassle driving to and from a petrol station every couple of days. Once you add a 100-watt solar panel into the equation, then even on a sunny day in the wintertime, you should be able to charge up this battery and run this setup for a few more nights to come. Now, in the context of the £250 compensation received, all the options I've so far talked about are paid for effectively by the power distribution company. Double your money to £500 and you're going to get a 500 watt-hour battery. Jackery makes one, but Bluetti is another brand to consider. You'll get 700 watts of AC output and you'll get a DC to MC4 adapter. And that opens up many more solar panel options, which we'll be discussing later. Rather annoyingly, 4 days before this blackout, I placed an order for a backup battery and it hasn't arrived. I mean, that's just perfect timing, isn't it? So I'm going to cut through to a future version of myself now, and we'll talk about this battery once it has actually arrived. Ooh. Wow, it's like Christmas all over again. I like new boxes coming on my doorstep. Let's have a look at this one. Right, let's unbox this. So this is the Power Oak Bluetti EB240. This is a 2.4 kilowatt hour battery. It includes two 230 volt socket outlets in a British style. And on the other side, we've got an input, a DC input. This is rated anywhere between 16 and 60 volts. So we've got two options which come with the package. We've got your regular 3-pin socket outlet, and we have got MC4 connectors which you can use to connect to any modern solar panel. Let's plug this in, let's have a look and see what we get in terms of charging. So if we plug in and we take a closer look. So this is charging up at a speed of just over 210 watts. And this mains power connection, it's quite noisy, it's got a cooling fan. And it will take about 10 hours to charge up. However, we can charge it up much faster using the solar connectors here on a nice sunny day. Now, before I do that, a couple of other features to note. We've got a 12 volt power outlet, which is suitable for anything which can be connected to your car. And we have also got 4 USB-A outlets and 1 USB-C outlet. One of the things you can see is that the USB-C outlet is rated at 45 watts. So this is probably a perfect outlet to charge up your laptops with. Now this weighs about 21.5 kilos. It's quite a heavy thing, but as you can see, it's quite a compact thing. It will easily fit inside a cupboard. Now what I want to demonstrate now is the socket outlets here. Combined, they will deliver 1000 watts. And there is a surge rating of 1200 watts for 2 minutes. This vacuum cleaner is rated at 1100 watts. I know there is a current inrush, so I'm not too sure whether this will work or not. So let's just plug it in and let's see whether it will actually power this vacuum cleaner. So if we do that, switch it on here. Switch on the AC. Okay, so We're ready to go. I'll switch this on, see how it works. It runs this. So as you can see, it's drawing just over 1 kilowatt of power. So this is my first demonstration of a heavy consumer which this battery was able to handle without any trouble whatsoever. It did take a little bit longer for the motor to spool up, but once it spooled up, it was operating at its normal speed. I was very, very pleased with that. So with this 2.4 kilowatt hour battery capacity, we want to see what the energy consumption is going to be for various essential devices around my house, which I will need during a power blackout. So to monitor energy consumption, we use this device which is plugged into the wall. It's very capable. I haven't used it all that much. Quite cheap. I think the brand is called Energini. So as we can see, we've got a value of power here. We can look at maximum power, we can look at current, we can look at frequency, we can look at voltage, but power is what we're interested in, and we are also interested in the accumulated value, which in this case is kilowatt hours. You can look at cost as well, and we can look at the total time elapsed. So we'll measure this for every device that we're interested in running in a blackout. In this example, I am running the internet router. So after a typical day's use, this modem will use about 150 watt hours of electricity. And after a day's work in my office, this laptop, docking station and monitor will use about 0.4 kilowatt hours of electricity. However, if I was to switch off this monitor and a docking station, the laptop itself would use half of that power. 24 hours of use from this fridge freezer consumes just over 0.5 kilowatt hours of electricity. So this lamp uses just over 10 watts of electricity. So if we have two of them in my lounge running for 8 hours in the evening time, then that is 150 watt hours or thereabouts. Now, for an evening's use, this TV and entertainment system with the big speakers will use about 0.8 kilowatt hours of electricity. However, if we just use the TV without using the receiver and speakers, then that consumption is reduced in half. So in a 24-hour period, our consumption will total 2 kilowatt hours. Without the entertainment system, if we instead have an iPad and a battery-powered Bluetooth speaker, we can get rid of 0.8 kilowatt hours. And if we use the laptop without the docking station and screen, we can get rid of another 0.2 kilowatt hours. So all told, we can use 1 kilowatt hour a day for 48 hours without needing a recharge. So the astute amongst you might think that using these MC4 connectors means we can connect it to any solar panel array. As I mentioned before, the inverter shuts down if there's a power interruption. So the question is, can we actually use the MC4 connectors here and connect them instead into this power adapter lead? In this particular example, the answer is no. Behind every single solar panel on my system, there is a solar edge optimizer. If that optimizer is unable to communicate with the solar edge inverter, then it will shut down the output from that solar panel. That means that we cannot use this adapter on my rooftop solar panel array. Now, let's say, for example, you've got a solar panel string on your own house, but you don't have the solar edge optimizers. Now, in that situation, the open circuit voltage for these solar panels is about 40 volts per panel. And if you've got 16 of them in series, then you've got a voltage which is about 600 to 700 volts. When you consider the maximum voltage for the DC input on the battery is 60 volts, then putting 600 volts in wouldn't be at all a good idea. Now there is over voltage protection on this battery, and that's a very good thing indeed. However, do bear in mind that you've got a barrel connector here, and whilst the outside case of the barrel is at negative potential, the inside of the barrel is only 1 millimeter away from your fingers here. So there's every chance that you could suffer arcing onto your finger and therefore suffer burns and a shock as a result of plugging this into your solar panel array. So the question is, how can we charge up this battery in a blackout and therefore keep this battery going for a longer period of time? So this arrived today. This is a solar panel. It's 375 watts and it's made by a company called Longi. This is very typical of the kind of solar panel which goes on my roof. But even so, you can still use it for this portable battery that I've got. So we're going to take this round the back and we're going to see what I'm going to do with this. The panels on my roof are each rated at 320 watts. So this panel represents a 17% improvement in performance over those existing panels. So here's my panel all opened up, and what I'm going to do is mount it on the wall of this shed. So let's go and get some mounting brackets onto this, and we'll see how well that process pans out. So the price of the panel was £218 delivered to my doorstep. Now on its own, the price of the panel including VAT was £151. The remaining £67 was delivery costs, and those delivery costs are fixed regardless of whether you order one panel or 10. So you're going to get much better value for your delivery the more panels you order. Now, the battery manufacturers also supply solar panels. In the case of Bluetti, they can sell you a 200 watt solar panel for over £500. So I think you agree, so long as you don't want portability, these domestic rooftop solar panels are much better value for money. Okay, let's have a look at what I've done in a closer detail. So I've got these two mounting bars on here. They are asymmetric, and the reason they're asymmetric is because the spacing on these has to match the spacing of the upright studs on my shed. They're not that asymmetric though, but what I've done is I've bolted these on to a torque of 8 Newton meters. So what we're going to do now is mount the brackets onto the shed and take it from there. So the whole point of installing this solar panel on my shed is so that I've got an option for charging up my battery in the event of a blackout. Now, considering the cost of the battery is £1,400, this solar panel is almost incidental in terms of cost. But the utilisation of this solar panel is also going to be very, very low. But this solar panel also has value as part of a hobby. I want to evaluate the performance of this panel in much closer detail in the future. Alright, this is the bit where I have to lift. So let's just see if I can get any grip. Right, that's one in. So now I have mounted it on the top hinges. What we're going to do now is open it up. We're going to sort the struts out underneath. Now, the advantage of having variable pitch is that I can adjust the solar panel depending on the time of the season and also on the strength of the wind. So we've had storms, as you know, so what I'll do is I'll have it flat against the wall during stormy conditions. So apparently, according to the data sheet, these are both 1.2 meter cables. They're quite stiff at the moment. Well, these are push connections, so first connector is this one, and we just push it in until it clicks, and then that's it. And then the next connection we'll just do. There we go. Just pull this one out and see if it's tight. Yep, that's good. Okay, so now we've got the barrel connector plugged in. Let's get this thing plugged into the battery. Okay, here we go. So it's taking an input. Now the disappointing thing is that the input is showing 0 watts. So what this demonstrates to me is that on a cloudy day, this isn't particularly useful, which is a bit disappointing. We'll wait for a bright spell in the weather to come through, and we'll see if this improves. So now we've got a sunny spell now. We'll just go inside and see what that says. So we can see there's 120 watts of input, which is rising. And the thing about solar charging is that this has got what's known as an MPPT tracker. This is called a maximum power point tracker. And what it will do is that it will adjust the load on the solar panel until it finds the optimum combination of voltage and current to carry the maximum power. And as you can see, it's charging up quite happily, but it's not charging up at the full rated 375 watts, which I was expecting from this panel. So that's quite interesting to see. Now the price of this battery is £1,400. Compared to the previous Bluetti I showed you, that was £500. So it's just under 3 times the price. However, even though it's just under 3 times the price, you get just under 5 times more battery for your money. Now, considering all the battery solutions that I've seen on the market, this price per kilowatt hour is by far and away the best bang for your buck that you can get. And that also includes non-mobile applications. The cheapest one I've seen is the Pylontech US 2000C battery. That is about £750 on its own. You don't get an inverter, you don't get a maximum power point tracker, and you do not get a nice package where it's all enclosed in this very handy box. You also get a range of outputs, including sockets, and it's very portable. So I think this represents tremendous value for money. However, the question is it good value for you? And I think only you can answer that question. You have to ask yourself the question, what is the cost of losing power to my house? And can this recover some of those costs? I think in my situation, I've had 3 blackouts already. I made a decision to purchase this before the Storm Malik was even forecast. And Storm Malik simply has justified my purchase even more. Unfortunately, it arrived too late, but there'll be plenty more storms in the future for this to have its paces put through. So as you can see, there have been quite a few more trees which have been knocked down after Storm Malik and Storm Corrie. So what that tells me is that this winter is probably a sign of things to come in further winters, where we get far more damaging winds in the future. And that illustrates a point quite strongly for me, that having a source of backup power means that you can have some sort of semblance of normal operation in your own house. You've also got the additional advantage of not needing to have an electrician install this for you. So the price you see in the shop is the price you pay for this capability. However, if you remember me speaking in my previous videos, I was talking about a whole house battery system. This battery backup system does not fulfill that requirement. It cannot take charge during the daytime and then give that charge back at night time without having quite a noisy fan and an inefficient inverter doing that job for you. It's possible, but it's not ideal. So I've now received a quote from my electrician for a whole house battery system, but this is not a backup system. I have accepted a quote for a solar edge energy storage system. This, as I've mentioned before, is a nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, and I've had hesitations about going for NMC chemistry. However, Solar Edge does offer a 10-year guarantee, and that 10-year guarantee is for unlimited charge and discharge cycles with an unlimited depth of discharge. And at the end of that 10 years, they guarantee that the capacity of the Solar Edge Energy Bank will be no less than 70% of its original rated capacity. That, for me, gives me a certain degree of confidence in investing in this system, because all the other advantages of this battery, including efficiency, ease of installation, and lack of D&O paperwork, in my opinion, outweigh that disadvantage. However, there is a waiting list for ordering this battery. I'm now told that the delivery of batteries is not going to commence until April. But in the meantime, I'm going to have more videos coming up. I want to take this battery backup, which I've just received, and I want to use it in a real life situation where I'm going to simulate a blackout in my house for 48 hours. I'm going to use the solar panel, which I've just installed, to keep that battery charged up. I want to see how well it fares in those situations. I'll also, no doubt, run more Tesla videos and maybe some more hill walking videos. However, my experience is that the hill walking videos aren't so popular, so I might not be doing that so much. However, I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and I'll talk to you again very soon.